Hello, David and Peter. I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to look at the camera as well as give you this statement which I've typed out, so do please forgive me for that. Please listen to this, it's very important to me. I thought a video would be more human than yet another email. I have something important to say before you brush off my request for mediation with the new chief executive. I was very disappointed at a letter being sent to Simon Truelove before I had a chance to meet you. In my school of counselling, the founder Milton Erickson said, if you keep reiterating the same request, you will get the same response, so do something different. I failed to get across to AWP for all these years because I was very angry, and rightfully so. I have communication difficulties because of my autism. The fact is, for 16 years I have been robbed of life because AWP continue to act wrongly, despite my giving them reams of evidence that I was bullied. I published on my website and began a campaign for very good reason. I hope you will read it. I was a professional author before I joined AWP, though they chose to misrepresent me as a nuisance and some sort of working class thug. This image being promulgated by the bully, Dr. Elizabeth Howells, a psychologist with a personality disorder who needed help that no one gave her. HR insisted in portraying her as our best manager, so she played that part, using vulnerable staff as scapegoats for her stress. HR failed to see the signs I showed in my story. That is why myself and Helen are speaking out. When Dr. Howells began destroying our careers, other staff were afraid to speak out. Perhaps it is autism that led to my foolishness in continuing to demand justice, and I mean moral justice, not justice through the courts, which is a different thing. AWP will try to reiterate the same old hat. There are 4 points here: that I am critical of the trust, making me out a liar, that they settled out of court, that they portrayed me as bullying Dr. Howells, which is a claim that was made up after I blew the whistle on her, that my case is historic and involves staff who have left. I'm going to refute these very briefly, please bear with me. Number 1, I am a creative. I trained in journalism. A lot of the people at AWP didn't know that. I'm acting in the public interest. Autistics tell the truth, where often neurotypicals will fudge. This is well known among autistic experts. For instance, Simon Baron-Cohen, Tony Atwood and Temple Grandin. Dr. Howells hated being criticised and was a terrible manager. She began emotionally abusing me at the start and had already been abusing other staff. When I whistleblew malpractice at the LD in surgery and things she'd failed to deal with, she began telling lies to HR about my personality, work and home life. She hated being criticised. I then made a formal complaint, upon which she ramped up to a false performance management. I was painted by bully supports as a troublemaker, refusing to accept management. This is where a further trail of lies began, including Dr. Howells telling HR that my father had abused me, painting me as an abusive person who abused others, which is completely untrue. I am fighting not only my reputation, but that of my deceased father, an ordinary soldier who served in the Royal Artillery in the Second World War, who was also autistic, but had exemplary conduct. Number 2, the paltry £12,000 settlement was made during my depressive illness as I went on to develop a nervous breakdown due to the stress. I went on to lose my home because AWP illegally cancelled an administrative contract on the back of a falsified investigation by Dr. Booth, who was a friend of Dr. Howells. This is when I attempted suicide. AWP suppressed the medical evidence and their legal team prevented me reaching a full tribunal hearing. It is simply not true what they say about the tribunals, and they were criticised by a Bristol judge in 2017, but he couldn't do anything because Anya Palmer, the barrister, had tied the law up in knots. You can check this with Anya Palmer because I'm sure she would not tell a lie if you asked her the question. I have documental evidence the settlement of £12,000 was deliberately punitive because they believed Dr. Howes. This document is signed by their former solicitor, Mr. Rahim Amarshi, the only decent man among them. AWP refused to concede my disability, denying my autism in court in the face of medical evidence which was suppressed. All these documents are on file at Bevan Britton and I have a copy. Many were sent me in dribs and drabs, up to and including last year by the new FOI officer. I am not seeking millions I might have won in court for disability discrimination, but a fair deal. Point 3. When I joined AWP, I was already a professional author with my own home and a social network based on my specialist interests. I worked there a year before going to work to Dr. Howes. Within 6 months, my career and reputation were in ruins. Today I'm living in social housing on a low pension, still reeling from the false accusations. For 12 years I was socially isolated because AWP panicked and demanded I did not contact staff or reveal any details or discuss my case. Point 4. AWP are publicly accountable because they accept millions in public funding. Their CEs are required to investigate staff complaints and they are required to cooperate with you in mediation. They cannot put a time limit on this, otherwise why would cases like Jimmy Savile's be the subject of inquiry? All the documents remain on file. I have copies of most of them in a searchable database. Some of the staff remain in post and have never been dealt with. I believe that is why all the CEs have been prevaricating. Our case, being about bullying in the NHS and whistleblowing, should be the subject of inquiry because thousands of employees have suffered like us and continue to suffer. In my case and Helen's, and staff too fearful at AWP to be named, justice has not happened. The law is not the same as justice. Legal teams like Bevan Britton prevent justice. AWP must in future not be given access to public funds to use for legal experts because they use this to avoid proper investigation. Helen came forward this July and is now being ignored. I have been ignored for 16 years. This is about morality, fair dealing. We want closure, we are being fair, and we want the trust to join us so that no one suffers as we have. AWP have professional liability insurance and could settle under NHS complaint system. They could apologise and join our campaign if they chose to do so. You have the power to make AWP morally accountable. This would take more than one letter. I would rather wait a year than suffer a lifetime of no closure. So I'm sure would Helen and all the victims. Please do something for us. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry this means more work when at a time when you're all of you very busy with Brexit. I don't understand about politics. I wish I did. But I know this is an injustice that must be dealt with. Thank you.